This is a brief review of a project that our university undertook back in 2016-2017. The project was coordinated by my co-author, Professor Andreas Georgopoulos, who formed an interdisciplinary research team comprised of representatives from 4 different engineering schools of our university. The main aim of the project was to perform a full restoration for the Holy Aedicule, which covers the tomb of Christ in Jerusalem, as it was suffering from severe damage which became dangerous over the years. For those of you who are not familiar with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, it covers a full block in the old city of Jerusalem and is comprised of many churches, monk cells, chapels, storerooms, and other spaces, forming a really complicated monument complex. You can see here the 2 main domes. The left one covers a cylindrical building called the Rotunda, with the Holy Aedicule at its bottom, and the other dome covers the main Catholicon, that is the Greek Orthodox Church within this complex. The main and only entrance for the pilgrims is through the Holy Yard, which you can see at the bottom of this picture. It is an undeniable fact that the Holy Aedicule, and indeed the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, is a living monument for all mankind. There are 4 different answers to the question why the Holy Aedicule Rehabilitation, that is the project that we undertook, is presented as an exemplary project. Firstly, the monument has a unique value for the Christian world, and not only, and it is emblematic for the values it transmits to humanity across borders and religions. Secondly, this project has been a remarkable achievement of Greek know-how, highlighting innovation and interdisciplinarity in the field of cultural heritage protection. Thirdly, this project attracted the interest of media, and it demonstrates Europe's position as a world leader in the digital transformation of the cultural heritage industry. Finally, this project can function as a flagship for our world in relation to objectives for digitally driven interdisciplinary cultural heritage protection. The discussions about this project started back in 2015, when the first damages were observed in the Holy Aedicule and caused the closure for several days. Professor Georgopoulos took the initiative to offer the services of our university to the religious communities responsible for the whole complex and compile a study and a proposal for the rehabilitation of the Holy Aedicule. This proposal was presented to the 3 main religious communities in Jerusalem and in Athens in March 2016, and next month a common agreement was signed for the works to begin. There were 2 main constraints. Firstly, to ensure continuous flow of the pilgrims and have everything finished by Easter next year, that is, in 10 months. You see here how the worksite was set up, the flow of the pilgrims, and the Holy Aedicule in relation to the plan of the whole complex. Geometric documentation took place at every phase of their rehabilitation project. We started with the geometric documentation at the initial phase in 2015, and then at every stage of the rehabilitation process, the geometric documentation of the parts involved took place. A complete final geometric documentation of the rehabilitated Aedicule occurred early in 2017, just before the ceremony of delivery of the restored Aedicule to the three religious communities. You see here the sequence of the main phases of the rehabilitation and some images of the rehabilitation itself. I will not go into detail because of the time limits. However, I would like to highlight some interesting points of the whole process, stressing out the interdisciplinarity, which is the main scope of this presentation. Firstly, the holistic documentation involving interdisciplinary cooperation to study the Aedicule and finalize the rehabilitation proposal involved geometric, architectural documentation, documentation of the materials, and structural assessment. Another interesting example of interdisciplinarity is the exploitation of the GPR measurements of the masonry of the Aedicule, which provided the raw material for the 3D visualization of the Holy Rock, which still exists within the walls of the Aedicule. So you see here the contours on the left that were produced via the GPR, and in the next slide you see some examples of the non-destructive techniques of prospection that were used, while in the center a short video shows the 3D visualization of the Holy Rock as it was prepared based on the GPR measurements. The geometric documentation base maps provided the necessary material for codifying all the slabs to be removed, which were later taken to the lab set up within the church. They were scanned, cleaned, and were prepared for positioning back on the walls after the rehabilitation process. During the whole project, the Aedicule was monitored through several means to ensure structural and material health and ensure that the rehabilitation is progressing to the right direction. So this means accelerometers, various sensors, embedded sensors within the wall, and a precise geodetic network to monitor everything concerning the Aedicule. A very important step was the moment when the iron cage was decided to be removed and thus free the Aedicule from this support, which was there since 1947. The decision, of course, was based on the observations and the monitoring sequence of the previous stages. I will show you now some interesting photos, orthophotos, before and after the rehabilitation of the Aedicule, so that you can see and appreciate the difference and the effect that our work has had on this very important monument. So this is the orthophoto of the entrance, that is the eastern side of the Aedicule before and after the rehabilitation. This is the northern side before and after the rehabilitation. The south side before and after, and the 3D model before and after the rehabilitation process. In this short video, you will be able to admire and appreciate the change that the rehabilitation works have had on the Aedicule. At the beginning, you see the Aedicule as it was in May 2015, before the work started. Later, you will see the restored form of the Aedicule as it was given back to the religious communities, and you will be able to visit the inside of the monument in a unique way. I remind you that what you're seeing now is a virtual tour of the 3D model and not the real monument. It is impossible for a visitor at any time to see the Aedicule as you are able to see it now. So please enjoy it. This is the antechamber, or the chamber of the angel, restored, cleaned from any remnants of smoke that were left there. We will then visit the tomb chamber, which is further to the west. The access to the tomb chamber is done through a low passage, which we pass right now. On the right is the tomb of Christ, and on the left you might have glimpsed at a window that it was decided to be opened there for the pilgrims to be able to see the holy rock, and for monitoring the humidity that was inevitable in such a construction. We will then visit the upper part of the dome of the tomb chamber and admire the mirror bearers that are depicted on the frescoes around the tympanum. These were completely covered by smog, and now you can admire them at their full colors, restored by our technicians and scientists. I thank you very much for your patience.